agents, let's talk about checklists. This is a residential checklist, and I love using checklists for complete processes, especially complex processes. Airline pilots do it all the time. They go through a checklist to make sure they don't forget anything. And that is the quickest and easiest way to get into trouble in real estate, is if you're not crossing your T's and dotting your I's. So I put together this little checklist for you to help you remember. And by no means is this definitive. Is this not 100% everything that you need to do a real estate transaction? It's just about everything I could think of on a normal residential listing transaction. So if there's additional stuff on here, feel free to add it. Now, how you want to use this checklist is going to be up to you. You can print it out. You can leave a digital copy of it. Obviously, as we've said many times, you need to be saving your files in the Google Drive so that way the brokers can take a look at them and know what's going on. However, if you want to print out hard copies of this as well, that's probably smart. I like to print out a hard copy of this checklist and check things off as I put them into my Google Drive, just so I know where I stand. And I keep this on my desk with each one of my listing transactions, so I know where I stand with everything and make sure I don't forget anything. I don't need to print out every single copy of everything I have, but it definitely helps me to have this printed out. But use it how you will. So for this video, I'm just going to kind of generally walk through what each one of these things is and why you might need it. And then at the end of the video, or in future videos, I'm going to go through each one of these additional items one by one so we know what's going on. So residential property, love checklist. So property address, duh. Buyer's name and buyer's agent. Once you get somebody property under contract, I need to know who's buying it, and I need to know that agent. And I'm also going to write down their phone number and email address, because I'm not allowed to speak to the buyer themselves. I need to speak to the buyer's agent. So you're going to talk to them a lot, and you need to know a quick reference point instead of saving everybody's phone number, which maybe you want to do, but how to get a hold of them. And then your listing forms, your GF number. This number right here, honestly, I don't know what GF stands for, but you get that from the title company. And it's a good reference point whenever you're speaking to the title company. They want to know what file it is. I know the F stands for file. I can't remember what G stands for. They want to know what their file number. And so you're going to write that down here, which is going to be very, very helpful. So let's go through these one at a time. Here's how I do it. What date did I do it? Have I sent it to my broker? I will put a check mark there if I need to do that. Or basically when I save that in my Google Drive file. And have I sent this to title? Check not. Signed and filed. When was this signed? Did it was in? And did I send this over to the seller's agent as well? Or did I have this one because I am the seller's agent or the buyer's agent, however you want to put that in there. And what the form number is and description. So the IABS, guys, first and foremost, that needs to be done. Yes, you have to do an IABS, because when you take this residential listing, that is a substantive conversation. So yes, when you're listing a house, you need to have them do an IABS. Did you do it? What date? Check. Put it in my Google file. Next one, residential listing agreement. Before you agree to list anybody's house, yes, you need to discuss what we're paying for it, what the commission's going to be, prices, can you put it in the MLS? We'll go through that one. This needs to be filled out. What day did you do it? Boom, did I put it in the Google Drive? Yes, that doesn't necessarily need to go to title, so on and so forth. So, registration agreement between broker and owner. This is a little bit of a different form that you may not have used before. This is more if you were selling somebody's house that is for sale by owner, and it's kind of a one-time transaction. You'll use this form, let's say you have a buyer that wants to be represented with the seller of an owner finance home, and you're also going to kind of do an intermediary thing with the owner finance guy. This is a specialized form. Like I said, we're going to fill that out here in just a minute, so that'll be another video. Are you doing intermediary? Great question. Are you representing both the buyer and the seller in the same brokerage? If so, you need to fill this form out. It does not happen on every transaction, just some of them. Remember, you specifically cannot represent the buyer and the seller, but the brokerage can. So if you've got somebody else that's in the white line house, you need to fill this out that's working on this transaction. Next one going down, the escrowed contract GF number. Once you get this contract over to escrow into title, you need to have that GF number. It's really important, and you're going to put it up here. Make sure you check off when you do that. Next, add contract info to the white line agents page. This is our particular page that is only specific to white line only. You're not going to find this anywhere else. You're going to go online. Again, I'll send a video about this too. Input all the information so that way we're aware that you've gotten a contract. Now, this isn't, you don't do this when you have a listing agreement. You're going to do this once you get a contract on the house that you're listing. So once you get a contract on it that is signed, you need to go put that in the agent's page. When you get that contract, do you have a copy of the third-party financing addendum? It's a great question. Are they paying cash or are they financing it? If so, you need to have a copy of that addendum. Make sure you have that. The buyer's pre-qualification letter. You don't have to have this, but I would highly recommend it that if somebody's trying to buy a house that you're listing, that they better be pre-qualified before you agree to take it off the market, even if it's for an option period. You're going to want to see that and have a copy of that and keep a copy of that because your sellers might ask for it. Hey, are they pre-qualified? You want to have that on hand. Next is the non-realty addendum. This is non-realty items. So if they are going to include their couches or furniture or whatever it is in the sale of the property, basically anything that is not attached to the house, you need to make sure that you have an addendum for that. Again, it's not in every single transaction, but it could come up. Lead-based paint addendum. Is your house old enough to need a lead-based paint addendum? Make sure you have that. If you do, you need to make sure that form is in there, signed. You should have this done actually while you're doing the listing agreement. Next, addendum for contingency of sale or sale of other property. When somebody sends in a contract for a house that you're listing, they may have a contingency saying, I'll buy your house if my house sells. So if that is the case in the transaction, you're going to want a copy of that addendum. You're going to want to make sure that you put that in your file that we have that. So that's, and by the way, all the form numbers are right here if you want to take a look at them. Any amendments to the contract. So as you go through this process, they're going to keep amending it. And you can amend the contract, infinitely, I guess. But you want to make sure you have every single solitary amendment that comes through it. I've had contracts that have been amended 6, 7, 8 times. You want to make sure every one of those you have and you keep. Because even if the amendments cancel each other out, it doesn't matter. You need to keep on file and in the Google Drive every single amendment that comes through. Should the contract terminate? Should they say, you know what, never mind? You do need to retain a copy of that termination. Save it with your Google file, save this checklist, and just print out a new one and start over. If they terminate the contract, they're going to want their earnest money back if they've done it correctly. I want to see a copy of that in your Google Drive as well. When they finally get done and ready to buy the house, I do want the buyer's walkthrough form. That's going to be something you need to save in that. This form right here is kind of the final acceptance. So we've gone all the way. We're about to close. Usually they do it the same day or the day before closing. They walk through. They make sure the house is exactly as they thought it would be. It hasn't burned down, whatever. And they're going to go ahead and accept the house in its present condition, and there's nothing else that's coming across the finish line because once you sign those papers, you want to be done and move on to the next one. Amendment to the residential listing agreement. This right here, guys, comes up from time to time. I don't see it a whole lot, but if we decide to amend our listing agreement for whatever reason, we're going to extend the period. It took us longer to sell the house than we thought. We need to extend that. Any amendments need to go in there, saved as well. An HOA addendum. Is your house in an HOA? If so, you've got a lot of stuff to do. You need to get the HOA documents and deed restrictions. I would highly recommend putting that in the MLS. You're going to need the HOA addendum. You're going to need the HOA profile sheet. This is a fairly new thing that you're going to want to put in. Put that in the MLS listing as well so that way you know that all buyers have access to it, but keep copies of it because sure enough, somebody's going to ask somewhere down the road. A CMA or BPO form. So the CMA is a comparative market analysis or a broker's opinion of value, basically, is a BPO. And the forms. So if you run a CMA, keep that together for them. So that way when the clients come back and they say, well, I thought you said it was worth this much. And you need to defend yourself because they're going to ask, why do you think it's worth that much if it's not selling in a certain time? So once you do a CMA, just keep the copy of it. Check it off. Know that you've done it. Notice of info from other sources. If you get any information, this is kind of a specialized form. We'll go over that one later. That's kind of a weird one. Total listing printout. Take a copy from the MLS, print out the full one, the full agent's profile one, and keep a copy of that somewhere because When you put something in the MLS, that becomes a legal defining a definition of the property. So if anything changes, you're going to want to keep a copy of what you put in there, because certain things, like if you say that, hey, I'm going to give you 3% commission if you help me find a buyer for this house, that's a legal binding agreement. So you want to make sure you know what you put in there, and should things change, you want to know every time that you've changed it, and when and where and what. So make sure you print out a copy of your listing and have it dated so you know what's going on. Keep a copy of it. The WPI 8 and windstorm certification, this comes from the Texas Department of Insurance. Windstorm is mostly for coastal places. If you're down on the beach, these are insurance documents, and we'll do another video about this because sometimes you need to make sure you have those floodwaters. Insurance can be a big deal breaker if people aren't ready for it. You need to make sure you have documentation for that. The tax appraisal printout. This says an NCAD, BCAD, it doesn't matter. It's all kinds of different CADs. I should probably just take out the N in there. What is the house being taxed at? We need to know what the current taxes are on that. Somebody's going to ask. Keep a copy of it, ready to go. The tax information from that. Again, that's from the CTA. We'll do another video about taxes, understanding all of that. The TAR 1406, the seller's disclosures. This is the one form that you do not help fill out at all. We've done videos about this. You need to make sure you have a copy. You need to put a copy of that in the MLS, put a copy of it in the Google Drive. This is where the sellers tell everybody what's going on with their house. The amenities list. So this is twofold. You're going to want to make sure you have a copy of this. This is not only just the house amenities list, which are all the great stuff that the house may have to offer that people have access to, but it's also the HOA amenities list. Is there a pool in the HOA? These are good selling points. You want to keep a copy of this as well. Any previous inspections or repairs. You're going to need to defend this house, especially if they had it inspected a while back and they went ahead and had certain repairs done. I want to have the receipts. I want to have this, because as the new inspector comes in, he inevitably is going to say, well, that looks like this was repaired. Yes, it was repaired. Here's the receipts. It's just good to have, especially high-ticket items. I mean, guys, if they went through and fixed a nail hole in the wall, that's not a big deal. If they got a new roof, really big deal. You're going to want to see that stuff to help. The hydrostatic testing agreement, acknowledgement and agreement. Hydrostatic testing is something they do to check the plumbing. It can cause problems if they do that. You need to make sure that they understand that it could cause problems and what effect it has on them. This is we'll go through this one in another video, but this is an important form should you do hydrostatic testing. We don't do it in every single house. Sometimes we do. The survey and T47. A lot of times you can save your clients money if they have an existing survey. You want to make sure that they have this, and then we'll do a form called a T47 that has to be notarized saying we have made no changes in this property. This can save your customer $300 to $700 to thousands of dollars if they already have a survey. Ask that question, keep a copy of it on file. The septic system. Do you have a septic tank on property? Not everyone does it. A lot of the more country homes that are not on the city water systems will have a septic system. You need a form for that. Next is an inspection report. Some people like to do inspections before they sell their house. That is a seller's choice. I usually do not recommend it unless I just have a really weird feeling about something that could possibly be wrong that would bite us in the butt on the end of this deal. However, whenever a buyer goes to buy the house, they will have an inspection, and they usually come back with repairs. I want to see a copy of that inspection report, and I'm going to keep a copy of that inspection report, because inevitably they are going to come back and say, well, you didn't do it according to whatever. And if you have a copy of that inspection report, it really helps defend your clients when it comes time. Information about property insurance for buyer or seller. Guys, insurance costs money, and you can also look up any previous repairs that have been done, any claims, anything. We'll do a whole insurance video. That's a lot to cover. Wire fraud warning. We do have a wire fraud warning that you should give to everybody. Have them sign and understand, give them a copy, and keep a copy for yourself, knowing that you told them. Wire fraud is big business, guys. People are constantly trying to do this, and they have figured out how to hack emails and know about the right time to email a client and say, hey, you should send your money here. If you send wire money to the wrong person, you ain't getting it back. So we want to make sure we educate our consumers, educate our clients, and let them know what to do to prevent any kind of wire fraud. So that's an important document as well. The flood hazard area, again, this is if you are in water, if you're in the flood zones, whatever it might be, you need to disclose that. There's a form, keep a copy. Again, seaward of Gulf intercoastal waters. Again, if you're selling stuff that's on the beach, this is important. Where it's Texas, guys, we might have that. Addendum for reservation for oils, gases, and other mineral rights. Again, this is very specialized, but it does come up. You know, I could sell you my land, but I want to keep the oil rights. That's a big thing here in Texas. Most residentials, it doesn't happen. Sometimes it does. I've seen it come up. Seller net sheet. How much money as the seller will they get? And we're going to have another video about this, but a lot of people like to have a rough estimate of what they're going to walk away with. So you need to do a seller net sheet for them as well. Obviously, the commission disbursement form, that is from us to you, so that way you know how much money you're getting and where it's going. Keep a copy of that. Your closing disclosures. This comes from the lenders or from the title company, whoever gives it to you first, telling you what we're going to be looking at when we get to the closing table. You should get that 3 days before you close. You want to keep a copy of that because when you go to closing, you're going to cross-reference what you received 3 days prior to what you have the day of closing to make sure that is correct. The title commitment, that usually comes out pretty darn quick. Once the contract's submitted, usually within a couple days, you'll get the title commitment and objections. You're going to want to keep a copy of this as well to let people know that, yes, we've got title insurance. The title company's committed to it. I've actually never had to use it, but I keep it because inevitably the minute we don't, it'll go into some sort of fire. The last one is emails, offers, contracts, related addenda. This is extremely vague in general on purpose. Anytime anybody communicates with me about any house, I keep them. If somebody submits an offer that my buyer rejects, I keep it. If somebody emails me about the house, I save those emails. Any contracts related to anything, but this is the catch-all. Because in real estate, if you get into trouble, it becomes a he said, she said thing. And you want to keep all documentation that you have on a particular transaction to help defend yourself. We want you to act as ethically as possible. We're not saying anything bad will happen, but sometimes people just reach out and try to find something that you did wrong. And that's why we try to encourage you to keep all of these things in your Google Drive, print them out, however you want to do it. It doesn't matter, but keep them. I like cloud-based storage because if your house burns down, it's still around. So this is the checklist, guys, for residential listing. They don't teach this in school. This is the hard knocks about what all the stuff that comes through. And a lot of these forms you've probably never heard about. So stay with us. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, you need to do it because as these videos post, as new videos post, as things change, you want to stay abreast of it. And like this is probably going to change. I probably missed something. I'm probably going to post this video and I'm going to have 500 people tell me about things that I forgot because it does get complex. And it's okay. We're all learning here together and we want to make sure that we do it right. If you have any questions, you know how to reach out to us.